Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method, and I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. So today we have a very special guest. We have John Tiene, who is the president of Argonne Associates. And John is a former insurance company executive. He is a recognized leader in the property casualty insurance industry. John's the president of Argonne Associates, which is a management consulting company, and he serves as the managing director of Strategic Agency Partners, which is an agency network that operates in New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. And Strategic Agency Partners is a growing organization with more than a dozen agencies and over 20 retail offices. John is the former CEO and shareholder of the Agency Network Exchange. And under John's leadership, the Agency Network Exchange became the 11th largest agency network in the nation, with more than $1 billion in combined agency premium. And during his time there, he also served on a number of insurance company advisory boards and councils, including Selective Insurance, AmTrust Financial and Nationwide. He was the director of personal line sales and marketing for OneBeacon Insurance Group, and he was responsible for the company's personal line sales and marketing activities in 8 states. And one more thing, for more than a decade, he was the chief lobbyist and spokesman for the Garden State's $12 billion property and casualty insurance industry. So full disclosure, I met John on LinkedIn, cold outreach on LinkedIn, and we have become friends and colleagues since. And Salesology, we work with some of the folks in John's network. So welcome, John. I am so happy that you are here today.
I'm happy to be here too. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start at the very beginning. I always like to start at the beginning. What is the John Tiene story? How did you get to where you are today and accomplish all the things that you've been able to accomplish? Give us the inside scoop. I read I gave the formal bio. Let's have the inside. Yeah. Let's have the inside scoop.
Well, the inside scoop was, I, as a child, my grandmother had been involved in politics during her life. So when I was around, 11 or 12, I got involved in politics. Volunteered for local campaigns, stuffed envelopes, swept floors, stuff like that. And that evolved until I ended up becoming quite involved in the community I lived in, and president of this organization, president of that organization. I got involved in the JCs, or Junior Chamber of Commerce, depending on the years, and got involved there. So I was heavily involved in community affairs, politics. And then when I graduated college, I had to make a choice. Do I go continue the political route, get a political job, kind of figure out who my political godfather would be, or do I just get a normal job and do the politics community stuff on the side? By chance, I answered an ad for an employment agency and landed up getting a job at Allstate Insurance. And that began the insurance career, but they soon found out I knew a little bit about government politics, and I landed up becoming public affairs manager for New Jersey back in the early 90s, when the market here for auto insurance was a disaster. That led to joining a PR firm that managed the State Trade Association. That led to taking this State Trade Association independent, building it. That led to major reforms. That led to me leaving, go back to corporate, and and so on and so forth. So,
and the rest is history.
the rest is, I'm trying to get out, but I keep getting dragged back in. So I don't think I'll ever get out of insurance at this point.
Well, that's probably a good thing, don't you think?
No, it's the best business in the world because everybody has to have insurance, and the institution of insurance companies are by nature conservative. So there's no craziness going on in how they're totally regulated. So it's kind of very stable, very consistent, and makes you really focus on fine-tuning those things that you can do to make the business successful or individual successful. And that's really the great thing about it. It's not, this is not a computer tech company that could fail or get bought, or it's not like any other business. It's pretty consistent, stable, but it can be very interesting.
So what would be your advice then for maybe somebody that's just getting out of college and thinking about what career they should join? Why should they think about insurance?
Because it's probably the one place, if you wanted a long career, you could do it. Because the interesting thing about insurance is it is so many different disciplines. Technology certainly is a bigger and bigger component, but so is mathematics. So is operations, so is sales, management, distribution, product development. It's a huge industry with a lot of different disciplines. So you can get into it and you can move around and you can stay with the same company, and you'll always have a job. We like to say our industry is a little incestuous because I've been in it for 35 years now, and there are people that I've known all 35 years that are still active and involved, but now they're maybe with a different company, they're doing something different. And if you happen to like sales, it is the best sales job to have, because in insurance, at least in property casualty, and in many other components, the retention of the client is extraordinarily high, higher than most other businesses. So it's like 90%. So think about it, you get up at the beginning of the year, 90% of your revenue, whether you're a salesperson or an agency owner or a company, is pretty much guaranteed. Very few businesses offer that same kind of stability. So for someone who likes sales, you can do really well over a very short period of time.
Okay, well, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I do have to ask you, because I was looking at your LinkedIn profile again. We met on LinkedIn, and I was looking at your website, and I just introduced you, and you talk about an agency network. And so I wanted to ask you, maybe for those in our audience that are not up on everything about insurance, what is an agency network and why is it important?
Well, it started, like so many things, back many, many years ago. So you might have had, think of the Midwest, think of small towns, think of insurance agents. They might have access to one or two or three insurance companies that they were appointed by, but they had a policyholder or a client that really would best fit with another insurance company they didn't have access to. Well, back then, there was a lot of, and there still is, but this professional courtesy. You pick up the phone, you call another agent, maybe 2 towns over, who had access to the company you needed. You say, Harry, can you explain it to him? Harry would write that policy for you, take care of your client, and we'd share some of the revenue together. Well, over time, these agents kind of came together and said, why don't we just have an alliance where we'll kind of pool all our premium together. We'll still run our agencies independently, but we'll pool all the premium together. That'll give us more influence with the company, give us the ability to maybe earn a little bit more revenue because we have larger piles of premium. And that's how this evolved. So today, the modern day agency network or alliance or cluster, whatever you want to call it, is simply, and there's a million varieties, but agents come together under the auspices of a unifying platform, such as strategic agency partners that I manage, and everybody pools their premium. They still own their book of business. They still own their agency. They operate it the way they want to operate it. But strategic agency partners, in this case, the agency network, is able to aggregate all their premium together and negotiate for higher revenue sharing from the insurance company. So we help the agents earn more revenue. If they need it, we can give them access to additional companies. But the big thing is we also act as a consultant to the individual agency, because each agency has different objectives they're trying to fill, and we consult with them. They have a problem, we can help them solve that problem. They're looking for technology, we can kind of give them guidance. If they're looking to add new employees or producers, we can give them guidance. So we become their kind of agency consultant, while also helping them improve their business and generate more revenue for them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is being a part of a network helps the agency owner. It helps the individual agents, and it also helps the agency's clients because they have access to different types of policies and cost savings.
Well, and the great thing is the agency has more influence with the carrier. So if you're an individual agency and you maybe have $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million with a particular carrier, that puts you on a spectrum. But if you're part of a network group that has $10 or $15 million with the same company, it's a whole nother spectrum. And so we can have conversations with the carriers about, maybe this client needs, they need some retention. It should be renewed, as opposed to them thinking maybe they're going to not renew it, things like that. So it just gives the agent more gravitas than they would have as an individual agency, which scale today is extremely important in just about any business. And you get that scale without giving up anything.
Okay. So I'm curious if you have seen changes in the market before, and I guess we can say after COVID. I'm not so sure about that, but before and after, has the market changed, or have things stayed pretty steady?
No, I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that we're going to go back to what it was like before COVID. COVID, as we study it more, is a transforming event. Yes, there were the health considerations, but it's a transforming event from the fact that it caused people to be forced to live their lives in a different way and use tools that they maybe thought about, maybe wanted to, maybe used very limited, but then had to use those tools so much more. And in doing that, it caused people to change the way they live their lives. And that's what's not going to change. And so we have to just accept the fact that, I was at a conference the other day, and we talked about the employment situation. I don't think people realize that we lost well over 2 million people out of the workforce, either through dying as a result of COVID or severe health complications as a result of long COVID. 2 million people, that's a lot. It also forced almost 4 million people to retire. They didn't want to deal with COVID. They just retired. They're not coming back to the workforce. So that's 6 million people right off the bat that were have impacted the employment structure of our country as a result. Plus another 2-3 million decided, hey, if I can work from anywhere, I maybe don't like this job, and maybe I don't like where I'm living. And so they've completely changed careers, completely changed the industries they've worked in, and it's very unlikely they're going to go back. So think about that. 8, almost 9 million people And as a result, it's forcing companies, because there's not a lot of people in the employment pool that are coming up. The next generation's not offering a lot of folks into the employment pool. It's forced companies and employers to figure out how to do more with less and struggle with how to work with employees. Those are all things that affect how people live their lives. And so from the practical standpoint of, I need to sell somebody a product, I need to make a living selling, we have to understand it. People don't necessarily buy things the same way they used to. Don't necessarily get the information the same way they used to. Salespeople can't use the same prospecting tools that they used to. That's what COVID has done, and those ramifications are going to string out for decades. And that's what we learned. I was forced immediately. We actually launched the agency network 1 week before lockdown came. And
weren't you lucky?
Timing's everything. And those first few weeks, it was like, okay, this is only going to be a few weeks. It's not going to be that. Well, a few weeks became a few months, became a year. And so we had to, we started the network with a core group of insurance agencies. So I spent a lot of time working with their sales managers to figure out, okay, now what? We still want to sell product. Everybody's locked down. How do we do that? We can't go to networking events. We can't go to trade shows. There aren't any. And interestingly, even post-COVID, a lot of them are not coming back, and they're not coming back as strong. So how do we change selling in that environment where salespeople were so used to a certain pattern to engage with people? That pattern was now totally disrupted. What do we do? So that was, for me, professionally, it was great, because I was really able to work with folks and go, well, have you done this? Have you done that? And at that point, it just made a lot of sense. Just call your clients, talk to them. Don't ask them about sales. Don't ask them about buying more coverage. Just, how are you doing? How's your business doing? Did you? And of course, the insurance companies were making changes as a result of COVID, making sure they knew about those changes and how they could help the business. And then, of course, then there was PPP money. Well, have you filled out your PPP application? And we did the same thing with prospects. Just call your prospect. Don't try to sell them anything. They don't care right now. They want to survive. So just talk to make sure they're all right. How they doing? How's your family? We landed up in a situation where after a few calls, a lot of our sales folks started realizing the agents that these people already had weren't calling them, weren't communicating with them. We were. So that put us in an interesting position to be able to, after 3 or 4 calls, why are you with that agency and not with this agency? I've called you 3 times. We have resources. So as a result, 2020 was not a bad sales year for the agencies in the group. And 2021 was an even better year. So I think COVID, it has changed things if we step back and look. And there's certainly a lot of really good lessons we can learn that we can institute going forward that can continue to make people be successful.
Well, John, that I really like what you just said about calling clients and calling prospects. And I think what's so interesting, what you said, that none of the other agents, the competition,
right?
They weren't calling, but your agencies were. And one of the things I often say to my clients, because so many people say, oh, the phone is dead. And because so many people believe the phone is dead, your competitors are not calling prospects. Well, so, years ago, you'd get a prospect might say, do you know how many salespeople called me today? Nobody says that anymore.
Well, we get robocalls.
We do get robocalls.
I've always been very frustrated because at the end, people will hear me, well, pick up the damn phone and make a phone call. And this is part of the challenge we have right now in sales. There is an over-importance being placed on technology. Technology is a wonderful tool, and there are some really good technology-based tools that salespeople can use. They can create really good, very narrowly focused pipeline lists and reports and gather data. But at the core, sales is a relationship. And you can't have a relationship unless you talk to somebody. And I will yell at my people, well, pick up the phone and call somebody or knock on the door. Until that happens, you don't begin the process of creating a relationship. And there's a lot of technology out there that are being thrown around, but the people who make the technology have no idea about the business they're building the technology for. And they think they can get people to engage and buy a product without ever having to talk to somebody. Now, maybe that's fine if you're selling candy bar or widget or a bottle of shampoo, that's fine. These are inanimate objects. But insurance is an inanimate object. It's a legal contract between a company and an individual, has significant ramifications. Yeah, there's a small portion of people who buy auto insurance, a small portion of people who buy homeowners insurance that'll do all of that, but it's a very small portion of the pot. The vast majority of people, individually and in business, they buy insurance from somebody that they talk to and trust. So the only way that happens, pick up a phone or knock on a door, period. Now, there's all sorts of different ways to build around that process. LinkedIn, for example, great way to create credibility, create a brand for yourself. Because what happens today when we meet somebody? Could be a neighbor. What's the first thing you do? You pick up your phone and you throw in some data because you want to find out about the person who bought the house across the street and what they paid for it. Or you pick up the phone, you put it in, you Google them to find out, who they are. Well, part of that, from a sales perspective, as a professional selling, people are going to Google you. They're going to check you out. If you have a digital brand, for lack of a better determination, that's good, that's solid, that conveys to somebody, this is somebody who I can trust. They're knowledgeable, they're thought of well. That's great. But they're not going to buy as a result of that. They'll engage with you, and then the communication has to take place. The relationship has to be developed. Then they'll buy a product from you.
Absolutely. You and I met on LinkedIn, and then we talked on the phone.
Right. And that happens a lot. And I think salespeople sometimes rely on the movies that they've seen about sales. Make a lot of phone calls, you get them on the phone, and you sell yourself on the phone. Doesn't work that way. That's a movie. It's not real life. So I'm always yelling at people. Just, I don't want to hear about you're going to run drip email this, drip. That's part of the process of developing brand, communicating information, but it's not sales. It's a part of the sales development process, but you're not going to sell a damn thing unless you knock on a door or you pick up the phone.
Got to talk to people. You just absolutely have to talk to people.
Well, and as you know, I'm a big advocate. When you do talk to people, you better know what you're going to say.
Yes.
You better be as competent and credible as the persona you may have developed online. And, for me, I was lucky. When I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I was involved in the JCs. And that organization was very, very focused on individual development. So you were forced as part of to learn how to organize projects, learn how to organize your thoughts, give speeches. I spent the better part of a decade basically traveling 2 or 3 nights a week, and on the weekends as a state officer to go and give presentations. So it allowed me to really be able to quickly organize my thoughts and be able to speak. And then I spent another decade as this chief spokesman for the insurance industry at a time when I would literally get 30 media calls, 40 media calls, 50 media calls a week. It was not uncommon for me to get called on 5:30 on a Monday morning from a radio station, and it's, can you go on the air? There was a story over the weekend. We want to get your comments for drive time. And I would have to wake up and then coherently communicate on a quick 3 or 4 minute back and forth with the reporter, the essence of the issue, because then they were done and they had to splice it. So I learned, I had the training over quite a long time on how to collect thoughts, get them, convey them so people know what I'm talking about, what I want them to know, what they need to know. So I'm a big believer that anyone in sales has got that. Yes, there are natural salespeople who have natural abilities to engage with people, get people to like them. Yes, but still have to be able to know your product, still have to know what you're trying to sell. You still have to know how to synthesize that. And that only comes from practice.
Hear, hear. So I want to ask you more about this, and also go back to what you were saying earlier about the employment situation.
Sure.
Before we do that, however, we do have a word from our sponsor, which is Salesology 3X Appointments. You know how frustrating and stressful it is when you leave every sales meeting wondering if your sales team knows how to sell, because they're not selling and all you ever hear from them are excuses. They blame your marketing. They say you need to do more social media, and they say you need a new website. You know something's wrong. You don't quite know what it is. And you're even starting to wonder if it's you. You don't have a lot of options. You can fire them all, start from scratch. That would be expensive. And you're really sick of waking up in the middle of the night wondering how to fix this. Well, imagine instead that you have an easy-to-use, replicable system that ensures that your team can easily schedule qualified appointments. And imagine that your team is excited and motivated. No more excuses. And you feel good. Salesology 3X Appointments can make that happen. If you're a business owner or a sales manager with an underperforming sales team, let's talk. Click on the link to my calendar in the show notes, schedule a time, and I look forward to meeting you. And we are back with my friend and colleague, John Tiene, who is the president of Argonne Associates. And I want to talk a little bit, John, about attracting and retaining talent, because you were talking earlier about all the people that have left the workforce over the past couple of years. And also, I know when I speak with my clients, they all tell me how very difficult it is to find good salespeople, to find and hire good salespeople. So can you share your thoughts how agency owners, business owners should go about this process of attracting and then retaining talent?
Yeah, happy to, because it's been one of my big frustrations my entire career. There are different management styles, and those management styles that don't acknowledge the fact that the employee is critical and important and deserves investment. If that's not how you're managing your employees, you got a problem. Because folks today who are employed want to be nurtured, they want to be mentored, they want to understand the opportunities for them within the organization where they are. And managers, a lot of times, and this is the yin and yang that's going back right now about, we want people in the office. Well, I always say, why? Well, so that we know they're doing their jobs. I'm sorry, that's a horrible excuse. Just about every job today is measured with some type of technology. And in the insurance business, it's all, interactions with clients, prospecting, whether it's on the customer service side or the sales side, it's all tracked. It's all trackable. You can know whether the person is doing their job or not. You receive reports every day. You don't need them in the office. But that's that old mentality of, well, if they're in the office, I can see that they're working. No, you can't. They might be in the office on Facebook. You think they're on doing something else. So we've got to get past that kind of stuff. And I have always used, if you have an employee, they should know why their job is important in the organization, regardless of how menial you might think it is. If it's a job and it's being done, why is it being done? How does it fit into the rest of the organization? And therefore, why is it important that you do A and B before someone can do C and B? So you've got to communicate that. The employee has to have clear expectations of what they're expected to do on a daily and a long-term basis. And you have to, kind of like in sales, you have to nurture that person, check in with them. You have to have a roadmap for them for their career. Well, if you can accomplish this and build this and hit these expectations, then, that might indicate you can go to here and then you can go to here. That's what employees today want and quite frankly deserve. So first, for retaining employees, create that kind of environment where people feel that their job's important, you understand why, you understand what the expectations are, and they have the ability to get better and move within the organization. Do that, first thing you're going to find is those people are going to start referring their friends. Because what do we all talk about when we're not at work? We talk about work. You complain or you don't. I mean, it's, how's work going? Well, it's great. I love my job. It's a really great environment. I never thought I'd find a place to work like this. You talk like that to your friends, your family, people are going to go, they got any jobs? They're hoping I'd like to get into that kind of an environment. So that's one. Do that. The second is, when you're looking for employees, look for skills and aptitudes. Don't worry about whether they know insurance, for example. Insurance can be taught. Now, folks who work with me hate it, but I always say it's not rocket science. It really isn't. I mean, I could learn it. Anybody can. So find people who have good skills, good aptitudes, and bring them in and hire them and then train them. Yes, there is a investment you have to make to train, but that's part of it. We have to be investing continuously in our number one asset, which is people. Pure and simple, yeah, technology is important, but people have to use the technology. So you need people with good skills, good aptitudes, invest in them. And if you invest in them, they feel compelled to be loyal. So that's very, very important.
Well, I love what you just said. John, one of my pet peeves is speaking with business owners, sales managers who have just hired a new salesperson, and they don't want to invest in training them to sell or training them to prospect because they want to see how they do first.
Exactly.
And sometimes I will say, how long are you willing to have them experiment on your dime?
Well, yeah, it's that old, I don't know. I'm a big believer in investing in the employees. I think it's very important when you get them. If they have those skills and aptitudes, that's what makes a person a good employee. Teaching them the substance of your business is easy. And if they see you're investing in them, that only improves their loyalty, their dedication, and their commitment over time. So that's why, I'm a big believer in it. And this, as a note I made for myself as I was thinking about today, we all get in ruts because many of us do the same thing all the time. And I'm a big believer in continuous learning and reassessing oneself and figuring out, am I in a rut? And this is, I think, a real big issue now post-COVID. We're all thinking about what we used to do before COVID. Can't we do it that way? And there's still a lot of that. We stop. You have to, any good salesperson, any good manager, any good professional should stop periodically and go, has the world that I'm operating in changed? And do I need to make adjustments? And that's where, I still find myself going back, trying to pick up tips on any one of the things that I do in my job. Can I do it better? Can I do it differently? What new tools are available? Salespeople need to do the same thing, particularly someone who's been selling for 10, 15 years. They should always go back and get new training to learn the latest and realize, well, maybe I slipped a little bit and I've become a little lazy and I'm not quite doing it the way I really know I should because I'm so good in your own mind. And that's a reality we have to deal with. So I'm a big believer in training, in reassessment, in maybe I've got to go back and retool. I mean, technology, for example, is a great issue right now. Everybody's being thrown tech. Agencies call me all the time. Somebody was just in my office and they promised me this technology. I'm like, well, that's great. Do you need it? And so, what do you mean? I said, well, do you need it? Does that technology actually help you in your agency in what you're trying to accomplish with your objectives? Well, no. I said, well, then obviously you don't need that technology. But let's talk about what technologies might be available to help you amplify what you're doing or make it more efficient or more effective. And that's the thing. And there are great technologies out. We're testing one right now for salespeople, which helps them, one, understand their book of business that they've developed. What are they actually selling? Salespeople sometimes are going so fast. They sell, but don't necessarily step back to get perspective of what they're selling, what kind of book of business they're developing. So this application allows them to really understand their book of business really well. It helps sales management figure out, is the salesperson selling products that are profitable and healthy, or are they selling a lot of things that are causing losses? And so it can help sales management to focus the salesperson. But the thing I love about it is it's a tool that allows the salesperson to build upon their success. So if they're writing a lot of one type of business, well, we all know everybody in particular business knows everybody else. It allows you to build prospect reports for that. So let's say you're going to see a really good client who really likes you, is really supportive of you. You can just talk to this application and it will find similar businesses in a 20, 30, 40 mile radius of that client with a lot of important information, contact information, number of employees, things like that. And in literally 3 seconds, it'll create the list. You can go in and you can sit down with your client after your meeting and say, listen, I'm trying to build a business. I know your industry pretty well. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Do you know any of these people? And would you refer me? And they're good enough.
That sounds like a great tool to have. I will be so interested to hear more.
But that's the kind, again, it's finding the right technology for the right application within your business that allows you to amplify in a positive and productive way what you're trying to do, as opposed to the 100 calls, the 100 emails everybody's getting. But the latest, this technology, every agency should have. No, everybody doesn't need every piece of technology. And so this is part of management's job, is to assess this, but also assess, are the people in my organization getting the training, revisiting the training? Are they getting that to help them be better? Because I run into people who, I don't need it. I know exactly what I'm doing. No, you don't. The world around us has changed so much in just 2 years.
You have to get out of your comfort zone. You absolutely, every day, have to find a way to get out of your comfort zone.
People operate better when they're out of the comfort zone because they learn things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you have to retool everything you're doing. But those 1 or 2 or 3 things you go, yeah, I could fine tune that. I could fine tune that. In many instances, that's what makes the difference between a sales meeting that's frustrating for everybody and one where people are, this is great. We're all doing well. We're all selling and hopefully learning from each other. That's, again, what creates the team effect within an organization where people feel compelled to help each other because they want each other to be successful. And
so I have 2 more questions for you. 2 more really important questions.
Sure.
Because this has been a great conversation. So here's the first question. Will you put your hand over your heart and promise me that you'll come back?
Sure.
Okay, good. Second question. If people, our audience wants to find you, wants to talk to you, would like to continue the conversation we started here, where can they find you?
It's really easy. John, John, middle initial K, Tiene, Tiene, plug it into LinkedIn and I'll pop up. And all my contact information is there. My phone number, my email. You can send me a message through LinkedIn. You can send me a message on LinkedIn or email, or you can text me, or you can call me. I found that it's a lot easier if you put the information out there. People can find you. So many LinkedIn profiles I go to, there's no contact information, which is kind of a waste. But that's just me.
I agree, and that I found you on LinkedIn. So, and then I think I called you.
Yeah,
so,
that's just go LinkedIn. Again, you can just plug me into Google and my LinkedIn will come up. So,
and we will also post John's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So we're going to make it really, really easy. Just go to the show notes and click on the link, and then you will find John
Very
Tiene.
easy.
Yes,
very easy too.
Yeah. So we have been talking to John Tiene, president of Argonne Associates, and he's going to come back for another interview down the line. He just promised. And thank you for listening to this Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast. And if you found value in today's podcast, then think about one person that you know, one business owner, one sales leader, one sales professional, somebody that you think would also find some value in this podcast, and share the link with them. And as always, till we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.